What's up, y'all? It's Dr. Paul with Liberty Hill Comics, where I share my passion and over 40 years of experience comic book collecting, investing, and conservation with you. We received our All-Star Comics number 55 back from CGC, and today I'm going to share the grade with you. It's been a while since we concluded this project, so we are going to review the work we did on this Golden Age gem. I'll reveal whether or not I sent any conservation notes in, and whether CGC deemed my work as conservation or restoration. That sounds like fun? Stick around. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. If you are subscribed to the channel, thank you sincerely. If you hit the bell icon, you'll be notified when we have new videos going up. And if you're not subscribed yet, please do so. It helps us reach a wider audience here on YouTube and create more of a community around our favorite hobby, comic book conservation. In case you missed it, in episode 1 of this series, we did a complete walkthrough of the book, assessed the condition, paying special attention to any defects that affect grade, as well as use of the comic book and permanence of the paper. We determined we had a mostly solid and complete comic book that presented reasonably well and could be read with some care, but with some significant flaws. These include a severe spine roll, a piece missing to the cover, some chipping along the right edge of the front cover, and a severely tanned cover to the point of the paper being brown in the most severely tanned areas. The interior pages were, for the most part, beautiful, with off-white to cream pages, and only a few minor flaws, including a pulled top staple on the centerfold, and a few very small tears on the reading edge of the first few wraps. We estimated the grade at approximately a 3.0 or good, very good. We developed a conservation plan for this comic book that includes assessment and documentation, disassembly, wet clean and deacidification of the cover with tear seals and paper reinforcement, and the same treatment of the interior wraps as well. After we get everything cleaned, mended, and dried back out, we'll reassemble the book without the spine roll and give it a good finishing press. If the conservation is successful, we can expect a comic book that has cleaner and brighter paper with a new lease on life, usability, and permanence. The comic should have an improved grade and also be easier to read without risking further damage, and the natural lifespan of the comic should be extended by a century or so by virtue of the deacidification we'll perform. It should also present much better and all around be a better collectible. I intend to send it to CGC to be graded and enter it into my CGC registry collection as a placeholder until I can find a high-grade copy of this rare comic book for my collection. In episode 2 of this project, we disassembled the comic book, setting the staples aside for reassembly, preserving their location and orientation information. Then, we did a few more measurements of the paper quality and dimensions of the cover and set it aside for deacidification, tear seals, and reinforcement at a later date. In episode 3, we did an aqueous deacidification bath of the first interior wrap with a calcium hydroxide solution and also performed archival tear seals with Japanese paper and a methylcellulose glue. These methods are reversible and considered by CGC as conservation, so when performed correctly, do not result in a purple, restored label if you submit to CGC for grading, which we intend to do with this book. In episode 4, we reviewed the results from our wet clean and tear seal procedures on the first inner wrap, and I showed you the method I use for washing the rest of the inner wraps in a fraction of the time by washing 2 wraps at a time and using a surfactant and warm water. I also showed you how to use a heated press to speed up dry time dramatically. This Golden Age treasure has 12 inner wraps plus the cover, so these techniques will help us get the entire book conserved in a reasonable amount of time so we can get it off to CGC. In episode 5, we returned to work on the cover. We took some additional measurements of the dimensions of the cover, and then we wet cleaned and deacidified the cover before moving on to paper mending. We reinforced the entire spine with Japanese paper and methylcellulose glue. We also performed tear seals and reinforced the right edge of the front cover, where there was considerable damage to the paper owing to the significant spine roll this book experienced at some point in its nearly 74-year history. In Episode 6, we looked at the results of our rapid wet clean and deacidification and quantified the paper quality for the different wash methods we used on the interior wraps, and concluded there was no discernible difference between the traditional and rapid wash and dry. We then moved on to review the results of the archival wet clean, deacidification, tear seals, and paper reinforcement with Japanese paper and methylcellulose of the cover. We trimmed the excess Tengujo paper from the cover and took height and width measurements. We concluded there were no discernible dimensional changes of our cover after all of our conservation procedures, contrary to conventional wisdom that aqueous bath will tend to result in dimensional changes in Golden Age comic book covers. Lastly, we looked at the paper quality of the cover before and after conservation. We used no harsh chemical or photo bleaching, and our goal was to deacidify the cover and restore paper permanence while preserving the beautiful vibrant inks and gloss of the cover. This meant only a modest whitening of the paper, but I think the result is a very satisfying creamy paper that connotes the age of the comic book while still presenting as supple and pliable. In Episode 7, I took all 13 of the conserved pages of our 70-plus-year-old comic book and reassembled them in order. I used a light box to get the staple holes as close as exactly where they were originally placed during manufacturing as possible, and then I replaced the staples. Once I had all the wraps properly aligned and the staples reinstalled, I placed the reunited stack of pages back into my humidity chamber in preparation for reestablishing the spine fold and giving this comic book a final press. In Episode 8, we carefully reestablished the fold of the book by placing a backing board in the centerfold and carefully aligning the edges. We then placed the comic book over a granite slab with silicone release paper above and below it, and gently introduced some heat and light pressure with a tack iron set to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. After a few passes of subsequently greater pressure, we checked the front cover to confirm that the fold was set, and we moved on to our final press, which was 15 minutes at about 160 degrees Fahrenheit. After the press, we examined the book and demonstrated that it now was an intact comic that could be read and enjoyed the way it was intended to be. It had nice cover gloss and much better eye appeal compared to our starting project. We then compared some before and after images of the book to take in the results of our work. We noted the correction of the spine roll, the overall brighter appearance, and the renewed structural integrity of the comic, making it something that we could enjoy once again. Then it was off to CGC. I took advantage of the vintage tier sale that CGC was running to send this book off for grading with 24 other books. There must have been a lot of other folks that took advantage of the same sale because it took CGC a few months to work through all the submissions. Although we waited a while for the outcome, we did enjoy grading of a nearly 80-year-old comic book for only $26. That is my all-in cost for getting this comic book graded, including shipping to and from CGC after the sale price and my discount for being an elite CGC member. I've created a playlist for this project. You can check it out to see all the videos in the series by following the link in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And here's the results of our efforts and patience. I did not send detailed conservation notes in with this one as I normally do, only because I ran out of time scrambling to get 25 books together by the deadline for submission to take advantage of the sale. Nevertheless, I was confident in my work and also confident in CGC's ability to judge my work. I'm pleased to say the comic book came back as conserved 3.5. I was hopeful for a 4.0, but I think the 3.5 is fair. Grader's notes include the piece missing from the right center of the back cover and the chipping on the right upper edge of the front cover. The label indicates only that the cover was reinforced. Page quality was cream to off-white, which is that nice warm patina that I was going for. Remember, these pages were all deacidified, so that cream color is not an indicator of paper degradation to come, because we've more or less arrested that process with our conservation. Remember too that we took meticulous measurements of the dimensions of this comic book and practiced constrained drying techniques to ensure we didn't get any dimensional changes in the cover. If we had, we were likely to get a cover cleaned notation from CGC. Overall, I think we hit this one out of the park and accomplished every goal we had with this comic book. I'm particularly proud of the balance we achieved in cleaning, deacidifying, and preserving this book while not bleaching out the beautiful and vibrant original 70-plus-year-old inks on this cover. Remember, we left what conservators call an alkaline reserve in the paper that will preserve this beauty against future breakdown caused by acid-catalyzed hydrolysis of the paper that is normally the natural fate of our pulp paper. It's relatively easy to bleach one of these books and whiten the pages with photo and chemical bleaching, but the art and science of conservation is about balancing preservation with presentation, and I think we nailed it with this particular book. I hope you enjoyed this video series on the conservation of this golden age treasure. What do you think of the outcome? What would you have done differently and why? If you enjoyed this video, please take a few seconds to give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you want to learn more about the techniques I use to conserve this comic book, including deacidification, tear seals, and constrained drying, check out our new book, Comic Book Conservation, available on Amazon now. I'll place a link in the description to make it easy for you to find. Until next time, take care of one another.